Hi everyone, my name is Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading, and today when you are seeing this, if you're watching it on the day it came out, is Canada Day. And for Canada Day, I thought let's talk about 10 Canadian authors that I would recommend or that I really want to try that I haven't gotten to yet. Most of these authors I have read from before, but there is a couple that I have books that I really want to get to, so I decided to talk about those authors as well. One of my favorite Canadian thriller authors is Shari Lapena, and I have yet to read Shari Lapena's newest release, and there is about to be another new release at the end of July, so I need to get to this one soon. My favorite Shari Lapena is The Couple Next Door. I loved that book, gave it 5 stars, but Shari Lapena always does still hit with a solid thriller every time. There's never been one that I didn't like. They always get solid reviews from me, and I do enjoy Shari Lapena's writing and mystery thriller style. Shari Lapena definitely does focus on like a family drama thriller. In The Couple Next Door, we actually follow a family whose baby goes missing. So please remember that is a trigger for a lot of people, so go into that one kindly. But most of the thrillers follow a family or a family unit or even a couple of families in a suburban neighborhood. Actually, this one looks like it is another missing child thriller as well, where the child is 9 and the husband was having an affair. That's all in the synopsis. Obviously, I haven't read that one, but that's kind of the vibe that Shari Lapena does, are these family integral thrillers. So if you love a good like suburban thriller, you will really like Shari Lapena. For some fantasy and sci-fi recommendations, we definitely have Iron Widow and Jiren J. Zhao. This book I read fairly recently and I really did enjoy it. I would have liked to see a couple of different things in the book, but I think we're going to expand on those in the sequel, and I'm very excited for the sequel to eventually come out and for me to dive in. This book has complex world building, a wonderful political system that you can dive into and pick apart and get to see the intricacies of, and also the feminine rage is strong in this one. It's strong in this one. We have a polyamorous relationship. There's so many great things in this book. Had to put it on the list as this author is Canadian and obviously one that I would recommend. So Becca Mack is an author I have not tried yet, but I do have a book on my shelves that I do want to dive into soon. This is a hockey romance, hence why this author is on my radar. Also, Kelsey read this and really enjoyed it, and I always trust Kelsey's opinion. Most of the time, we do tend to disagree on ice hockey romances though, so that could be concerning, but I'm giving faith. I'm giving faith. It is chunky though for a hockey romance, so that does make me a bit nervous, but again, I've heard a lot of great things about it, so I'm keeping my hopes high and really wanting to dive into a hockey romance written by a Canadian author, because I feel like a Canadian author can really dive into hockey romance. Sarah Denzi wrote The Marriage Game, and I read the first book of this, I think, during TAR last year. So it has been a while since I've dipped into the series, and I do really want to continue because the first book was really fun and really interesting. And also, the Indian culture shown in this book was so fun to see mixed in. The food and all the different culture in this book was really just brought it off the page and made it so interesting to read. And I think each book in the series follows a different member in the Patel family and their romances. I can't wait to see which characters we follow next in this series. And I really think the author does a great job of just showcasing the culture in these books and also a fun rom-com feel while you're reading them. I can't talk about Canadian authors and not mention a book that got 5 stars from me and a series that I need to continue because I read the first one, gave it 5 stars, and I still haven't continued, and I'm not really sure why. And that's K.A. Tucker and the Simple Wild series, although I believe K.A. Tucker has written other series since, but I still need to finish this one first. I gave the first book 5 stars. I loved Calla's story. We see Calla, who has not seen her father since she was like 2 years old. She lives in Toronto. She hasn't spoken to him since she was 7. He lives in Alaska. Her mother did not want to live in Alaska, and that's how this kind of family breakdown happened. She finds out her father has cancer, so she does decide to go to Alaska because she doesn't want to miss out on kind of getting the answers that she seeks. When she gets there, she meets a bush pilot who works for her father, and a romance does happen while she's there. But also there's a lot of family dynamics at play as she kind of rekindles a family relationship with her father and also his kind of found family that he's made in Alaska. This is not a companion series. We continue to follow Calla and the members of this family in the second book. So I think that might be why I've been a little hesitant, because I think after the first book, it leaves its romance kind of heavy genre and follows more of a general fiction, contemporary fiction, lit fic kind of situation. So it definitely is switching into a genre that I don't read a lot of, but I loved this book so much that I need to continue, and I have the whole series because for Canada Day last year, these all went on KU just for the day. So a great Canadian author that I need to continue because this is the highest rated book that I have on my list to talk about today. So I recently talked about Hannah Bottom Young in a recent video talking about the series Next of Kin, which I read the first book of, really loved it, has great representation for sign language and deaf representation. And when I recommended that book on that video, I did not actually realize the author was Canadian. I didn't realize that until I was doing some research for this video. I am set to be buddy reading the sequel to that. After making that recommendation in the video, we decided that since they all enjoyed the first book, we would buddy read it together. There is a large group of us doing this buddy read. I hope to pick it up very, very soon, but I also want to pick up Out on a Limb by this author as well. I've heard nothing but 5-star reviews for this book. And it also has representation with having a character with an amputee. This one does have an unexpected pregnancy trope, so keep that in mind because I know that isn't for everyone, but I've heard it's done very, very well. And I love that I discovered that one of my favorite authors and an author that I was already really enjoying their books is a Canadian. Who knew? Now I know. And now I'm telling you. Louise Penny and the Armin Gamache series are a really fun, not cozy mystery because technically the main detective is an actual detective, so it doesn't fit the actual definition of a cozy, but it has a cozy mystery vibe while still being, pretty good mysteries in and of themselves. It's set in a small area of Three Pines, which is in Quebec. I'm pretty sure it's fictional. It's not real, but it's a fictional town in Quebec. It follows Armin Gamache, who is the chief inspector to the homicide division in Quebec, and he goes to this small town to solve crimes. This small town has an eccentric group of characters, and as you know from the mysteries that I tend to love, I love an eccentric group of characters. Thursday Murder Club is a great example of characters that I just fell in love with, and Three Pines and all the characters there are no different. Those eccentric characters and the characters Louise Penny has created is why I love this author and love this series so much. I read my first book by Michelle Good last year when I was doing books with numbers in the title, and I just discovered such beautiful writing from this author. Michelle Good is a Cree author here in Canada who lives in Saskatchewan and wrote a lovely book called 5 Little Indians and has written other books that I need to get to. This book follows 5 Indigenous characters as they are children and enter into a residential school here in Canada. It is heartbreaking to watch what they go through and read their stories. They are fictional stories, but let's be honest, they could represent a real person at any given time. We follow them while they're in the residential school and also their lives after. We see little snippets of their lives through adulthood and see how those experiences and also trying to get reconciliation for those experiences shape their lives. It is a hard book to read, but it is so important and covers such important topics that we all need to know about. And Michelle Good does it so well, did it so well, and I need to pick up the other books by this author at some point. Emily St. John Mandel, I did not realize was Canadian until I borrowed this book in theory to read it during the Amazing Readathon. I didn't get to it. And the reason I realized they were Canadian author is because it has a Canadian sticker on the library book. So that's how I put 2 and 2 together on that one. This book was recommended to me because of how similar it is to How High We Go in the Dark, which is going to be probably one of my best books of the year. I loved that book. It was so powerful. It's sad. It's a lot. It's got a pandemic in it, so keep that in mind. But it's a beautiful book, and I really enjoyed it. And apparently this has very similar vibes, and I wanted to get to it. Haven't yet, but I really want to. I've also heard really great things about Station 11 by this author, so definitely a Canadian author that I want to try for their sci-fi books that they're churning out. And for my year of sci-fi, this is definitely an author I need to get to before this year's over. The last author I'm going to talk about is Amy McKay. I have Amy McKay's books on my TBR, and on my shelf, I have The Witches of New York. This got on here because I love a witchy book. I do love a witchy book. I love witchy vibes. But also this author lives in my province of Canada, Nova Scotia, so we have even a little bit in common with that. From what I've heard from other people who have read Amy McKay's writing, I'm expecting a lot of vivid prose in this book, which I love beautiful writing. I love prosy books. It makes me so happy. And I'm expecting that from this author. And also the historical and witchy vibes of kind of women being persecuted for their power. That's what I'm getting from this book, and I'm here for it. I'm here for the feminine rage and the women to rise up and take on what everyone is trying to push them down with. Like, I'm here for it. But those are 10 Canadian authors that I have tried and loved, or do really want to try and have books on my TBR by them that I would recommend for you to try as well. If you've made it to the end of the video but have nothing to say to me down in the comments, why don't you leave a maple leaf emoji for our Canadian author friends? Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.